is not of gloom, but of joyfulness. I can tell you every time Tatarada comes along, I hear from people, oh God, here we go again. Oh man, another year of this stuff. Oh my God. Why do I have to go through this? Why do I have to subject myself to this stuff? Fasting does bring us to repentance. It brings us to grief for sin. And according to St. John Clementus, is a joy creating sorrow. I love that phrase. A joy creating sorrow. Again, that the mentions both tears and gladness in one sentence. It says, grant me tears falling as the rain from heaven, O Christ, as I keep this joyful day of the fast. It is remarkable how frequently the themes of joy and light recur in the text for the first day of Lent. With joy, let us enter upon the beginning of the fast. Let us not be of sad countenance. Let us joyfully begin the all-hallowed season of abstinence. And let us shine with the bright radiance of the Holy Commandments. All mortal life is but one day, so it is said. To those who labor with love, there are only 40 days of the fast. Let us all keep them with joy. And I would like to read from you something from, Cottage Ware about the Great Fast. He writes, and I for direct quote, Lent signifies not winter, but spring, not darkness, but light, not death, but renewed vitality. Certainly it has its somber aspect with the repeated prostrations at the weekday services, with the dark vestments of the priest, with the hymn sung to a subdued chant, full of compunction. Theaters in the Christian time of Byzantium, the theaters were closed, and public spectacles forbidden during Lent. And even today, weddings are forbidden in the 7 weeks of the fast. Yet these elements of austerity should not blind us to the fact that the fast is not a burden, not a punishment, but a gift of God's grace. End quote. Fifthly and finally, our Lenten Thessaloniki does not apply rejection of God's creation. We are not rejecting ourselves. And we are not rejecting the items that we are fasting. And St. Paul insists nothing is unclean in itself. Romans 14:14. All that God has made is very good. Genesis 1:31. To fast is not to deny the intrinsic goodness of the creation, stuff that created, but to reaffirm it. Titus 1:1. To the pure, all things are pure. And so, my dear friends, at the messianic banquet in the kingdom of heaven, there will be no need for fasting and ascetic self-denial. Evil does not reside in the created things. But resides in our attitude towards them. That is, in our will. So the purpose of fasting is not to repudiate the divine creation of God, but to cleanse our will. The observations of the great fast ultimately are to cleanse our will. To bring us into that relationship with Christ. That said, I got a lot more to go, but I'll stop right here. Any reactions? Anybody? Want to tell me I'm crazy? Tell me I don't need that type of control. Yes, sir.
Prayer, prayer to teach the level of balance of fasting. In other words, we talk about between how to treat each other and how to follow the fasting, whether it's eating or how we deal with each other. And yet what is guiding us is through prayer. That's how the balance.
Well, the balance here is kept when if you've got a prayer life and you've got a prayer life. Let's say you've got a prayer life going into Lent. Right? Guess what? You may be on that maintenance level and not know it. See, there's the real critical issue. That's that self-complacency kind of thing. So you're going into Lent, by definition of the Lenten season, if one's going to church like one ought to go to church, then the prayer life is going to get ratcheted up 100-fold. Why don't you think about this? If one goes to the canon services, if one goes to the pre-sanctified liturgy services, if one goes to the Kennedy 3 services, that's more services in a week than most of you do in a year. Think about it, on a weekly level. How many times through the course of the year would you go into 4 services in 1 week? If you do, you're an exceptional person. Average parishioner goes Sunday morning and maybe a Vespers. Then it has to be a feast day Vespers. Because we clergy don't offer it. Because when we do open up the doors, we're heating the building on, we're putting the lights on, and they're all collecting utility bills, and no one's coming through the door. So like somebody looks at you and says, Father, how can you be a good steward and still keep doing this? Catch-22. So therefore, the prayer life gets increased. And as when that prayer life gets increased, with the grace of God, through the will of God, one will not have a negative attitude towards their fellow man. Because without a prayer life, there ain't no God inside of you. Now, have you ever bothered to look at the word enthusiasm? Good Greek word, root. And theos. God is within you. If you are walking around like a sourpuss, ain't no God inside of you. You can't be walking around the world's lousy and moaning and groaning 24/7 and tell me that God is residing with you. It's not happening. If you have no enthusiasm about life and who you are, God's not residing.